Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. This is the uniparty for the American people watching. Our elected Republican Speaker, Mike Johnson, has aided and abetted the Democrats and the Biden administration in destroying our country. Whereas removing this uniparty Speaker will not give the Speaker's gavel to the Democrats, which would only happen if Republicans actually vote for Hakeem Jeffries.
We're getting along very well with the Speaker, and I get along very well with Marjorie. We have a Speaker. He was voted in, and it was a complicated process, and I think it's not an easy situation for any Speaker. I think he's doing a very good job.
All right, folks, I know we don't normally talk about the day-to-day congressional politics on this channel for obvious reasons because it's freaking boring, but I think in the case of today's news, we have to make an exception because MTG trying to vacate Speaker Mike Johnson, it failing spectacularly. I need to share my thoughts, and I think it highlights two very important things, which is, first of all, just how incompetent the Republican Party is at actually governing. And listen, to be clear, if you're just coming to this channel, I do not say that as some type of liberal. I don't say that as a Democrat, okay? I'm a conservative. I certainly align much more with the GOP on issues than I do the Democrats. But with that in mind, I think we just need to point out reality here. It is not a good look. The GOP cannot get its act together. And frankly, if we look ahead to November 2024 and we look specifically at the House races and hey, why didn't we win the House again, or why was it such a slim margin even if we did, we're going to look back to this type of antics on election year and say that was the reason. But I think number two, more importantly, arguably, is the way in which I think in the case of MTG, this is an example of someone who has built their career and has prided themselves for years on being very pro-Trump, right? This is Trump's warrior. This is Trump's bulldog. And look, a lot of people have thought she's too controversial. She's too this or that. But when it comes down to it, why does the MAGA base like Marjorie Taylor Greene so much? Loyalty to President Trump and his agenda. Well, I think this is actually a prime example here today where she tried to pull off a publicity stunt that was, and this may be a hot take, but I'll explain why, very subversive to Donald Trump, his wishes. He openly said he didn't want MTG to do what, she did, and she did it anyway. But specifically in regards to Trump's chances of winning the November election, which I assume we all mostly agree is probably the most important thing right now. So let's break that down, I guess, starting with the fact that, of course, like I said, MTG for a very long time has been threatening to do a motion to vacate on Speaker Mike Johnson, basically do a reverse Kevin McCarthy. Now, why has she been doing this? Well, I think there's the stated reason and there's the unstated reason. The stated reason is something that I can at least sympathize with, which is she's pointing out that Mike Johnson has been a big disappointment as Speaker to the conservative base.
Whereas Speaker Johnson worked with Democrats to produce appropriations text, NDAA text, and other legislative items rather than with Republicans to understand and emphasize each member's unique strengths and engage with them. Whereas Speaker Johnson relied on majority Democrat support to pass a two-part omnibus spending bill rather than advancing a policy agenda supported by conference consensus.
Now, let me just say, don't get me wrong, I absolutely 100% agree with that. That is not my objection with MTG, and don't let anyone get that twisted, right? Especially with this foreign aid bill to Ukraine and Israel and all this stuff that they're talking about right now. That is a betrayal to what he promised and what was expected, and frankly, a lot of the reasons why we tried to get Kevin McCarthy out in the first place. So, don't get me wrong. I agree that Mike Johnson has been a big disappointment. We'll address that in a second. But I think truly the unstated reason that I hinted at earlier is the fact that Kevin McCarthy and MTG are basically BFFs. And that is a big reason why she actually opposed the original motion to vacate against Kevin McCarthy. She did not vote for that. And I think that really gets down to the real reason this is all happening. So anyways, with that context out of the way, today she officially introduced the motion to vacate that she was hinting at and threatening for a pretty long time there. And it immediately got struck down. It was tabled away, which basically means it was resoundingly defeated before it could even be really addressed. Okay, so with all of that said, let's, I guess, now address why I had those harsh words for MTG in the beginning and why I'm doubling down and saying I think the stunt she tried to pull today, which thankfully failed, okay, was actually pretty subversive. It was not designed to help Trump or the real conservatives in the party or whatever it is. And let's break that down, which is first and foremost, let me reiterate. Do I 100% agree that Speaker Mike Johnson has been a huge disappointment? Absolutely. My objection to it has been this. First of all, if we were to go through this entire act again, to vacate again, go through the whole McCarthy thing 2.0, would we actually get a better speaker than Mike Johnson? Well, I think as you learned from the first time we did this entire thing where we tried to get Jim Jordan and then Byron Donalds and the neocons wouldn't vote for it, is the answer is no. We do not have the political support at the current moment to really get anyone better in there. And so on substance, and by the way, let me just note, the House majority for Republicans right now, because of George Santos and people resigning and all this stuff, is down to one Republican. Okay, so you want to talk about, how the neocons stopped us from getting the speaker we truly wanted last time in there? Well, that's only going to be even worse now. Realistically, all that would have to happen is one Republican flips, and you have a Speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, okay? And that's, first of all, practical reason why, even if I'm disappointed with Mike Johnson, I did not think this was a good idea. But number two, and perhaps more importantly, okay, doing what we did last year in 2023 was one thing. However, the reason why I have such an issue with MTG doing this the way she's doing on election year is, again, number one, we weren't actually going to get a better speaker. The whole thing would have been a petty waste of time. But then number two, all it would show the American public is that the Republican Party is completely incompetent, stupid, and has no ability to govern, okay? Like, that's just what would happen. You're good, it's one thing to vacate one speaker about over a year ago. That's one thing. You're vacating two speakers on election year. Your party can't even pretend to show a united front. That would yield us no good. And then, frankly, it would deem all the debates about how conservative our speaker is irrelevant, because you know what would have happened with all this chaos and what might still happen because of all this chaos is in November, we'd lose our very narrow one-seat majority in the House to the Democrats. And then guess what? It doesn't matter if you want to have debates over Mike Johnson or Kevin McCarthy, because Hakeem Jeffries, folks, would be the Speaker of the House. And the entire thing was a gigantic waste of time. And frankly, that's why I say what she tried to do today was openly subversive to the Republican Party, and arguably, too, openly subversive to Trump himself, because not only would that maybe stain him, hey, his party is having a bunch of issues, but even if he was able to overcome the image of instability that the Republicans may have, okay, well, let's say he wins in November. What then? Because you just cost the House to the Democrats because you could not get your act together. So you're going to hand Donald Trump a Democrat House and claim that you were doing the principled thing, Marjorie Taylor Greene, to help Donald Trump or help conservatives. Again, how would that have done anything positive? And by the way, if you want to reject my opinion on this, you want to say, Vince, who are you to say this? Well, I would also point out the fact that Donald Trump himself has backed Speaker Mike Johnson for basically that exact same reason, right?
We're getting along very well with the speaker, and I get along very well with Marjorie. We have a speaker. He was voted in, and it was a complicated process, and I think it's not an easy situation for any speaker. I think he's doing a very good job. He's doing about as good as you're going to do. And I'm sure that Marjorie understands that. She's a very good friend of mine, and I know she has a lot of respect for the speaker.
So he went out here during this move and said on Truth Social, he says, I absolutely love Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's got spirit, she's got fight, and I believe she'll be around on our side for a long time to come. However, right now, Republicans have to be fighting the radical left Democrats and all the damage they have done to our country. With a majority of 1 shortly growing to 3 or 4, we're not in a position of voting on a motion to vacate. And again, folks, 100% agree. That's basically exactly what I said, right? At some point, we may very well be, but this is not the time. We are leading in the presidential polls by a lot, both nationally and in the swing states. Likewise, we are doing well in the Senate, and I believe we will do well in the House. But if we show disunity, which will be portrayed as chaos, it will negatively affect everything. Mike Johnson is a good man who is trying very hard. I also wish certain things were done over the last period of 2 months, but we will get them done together. It is my request that Republicans vote for the motion to vacate, the motion to table, I should say. We will win big, and it will be soon. Spot on, in my opinion, there from President Trump. And notice something he brings up that maybe the hardcore purity spiraling conservatives may want to point out. He doesn't say, nor am I saying, that Mike Johnson is the ideal speaker that we should settle on till the end of time. But notice how he says we are not currently in the position of power to do the motion to vacate, right? Now, let's be clear, okay? If we get our act together, and in November, we win, say, 10 more, 15 more seats in the House, and there is a solid conservative majority, then I think it is incumbent that we have a discussion. Who should the Speaker of the House really be, and what issues should they stand for? I'm all in favor, after the election, of maybe picking a different speaker than Mike Johnson, and I would be 100% behind that. But this performative clown show before the election, what's the point of it? What was it really about? Well, I'll tell you what it's really about to close out here this video, and why I especially think MTG displayed some serious hypocrisy through this entire thing is MTG can go out there and say that, oh, this was about my conservative principles, right? And she will say that. She will say, look, you guys can say it's not the practical political thing to do, but look at the spending bill. Look at what he was doing. I was defending the values of true conservatism. Except there's just one problem with that, MTG, is if that were true, why didn't you back the motion to vacate McCarthy? Because when you really break it down, the grievances against McCarthy back then and Johnson now, the disappointment is basically the same. Why does he keep signing off on liberal spending bills? Okay, fair enough. However, MTG defended McCarthy. MTG did not vote to vacate McCarthy. And so that's my thing is, at least if she also was anti-McCarthy, she would be consistent, okay? She's just a firebrand warrior who every time you piss off the true conservatives or whatever, we're going to get the rhino out of power. But that's not what it is, because she defended the last rhino. So circling back here to what I started the video with, what is it really about? Why is the real reason MTG tried to vacate Mike Johnson today? It's not because of any principle. And let's be clear about that, guys. And that's what I want people to understand, and why I'm not going to disavow her entirely as a Republican, but I'm very upset with her right now is you did all this not because of principle, because again, if you did, you would have vacated McCarthy as well, but because of your personal friendship with McCarthy, and you didn't like the way he was taken out. And so because you're petty over that, because you're still scorned over what they did to him, you are now currently trying to jeopardize Donald Trump, the House GOP, and our entire chances as the Republican Party in the election simply over what is a completely petty personal grievance, okay? And that is 100% my issue with it, and that's why I'm glad it was strucken down. Hopefully, you know, I'm really hoping right now the American people just forget, because it went away so fast, and they just turn off MTG, because, you know, she's not doing us any favors right now. I'm saying that as someone who defended her in a lot of the other cases where people said she was being too extreme or she's too much of a liability, but I said, okay, at least she's a warrior, at least she's standing for something. But right now, in the case of this, she's not standing for a whole lot. She's actually just being a huge liability to the GOP for the pure sake of trying to exact her vendetta over the McCarthy stuff, and I don't think that's okay. And you know what, frankly, All right, maybe this was a case where you should just be quiet and like listen to what Trump wants, okay? Because you claim that, hey, I'm all for Donald Trump, you know, this and that. Well, if that's true, again, why are you doing something that is totally hurting him in the election and he himself says he doesn't want you to do? I don't know. That said, folks, let me know your thoughts on this House GOP drama in the comment section down below. Do you agree with my take? Do you think it's just not the time? Am I wrong for some reason? Is there a reason why you think you're actually on MTG's side here and you think, hey, we got to prove a point over these spending bills? But again, to me, I think we prove the point by actually, because, you know, not doing it performatively. If we're going to get another speaker after this, I want a good speaker. Right? We're not going to put Hakeem Jeffries or some neocon in. Oh, we really proved the point to Mike Johnson. Really? Be practical. All right? And that's the thing, big picture. I think we as a GOP need to be smarter just in the way we play the game. Right? You know, you can complain about the game, but you also got to win the game to change the game. That makes sense. Okay. Be sure to leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Alpha moves only. God bless. Have a very great rest of your day and peace.